Hello there, my name is David with the Daysmart Salon training and support team. It's a great day for a webinar today. Today's webinar is going to cover those topics that are considered administrative in nature. So this is the administrative webinar. So I'd like to recommend that you guys go to our website, www.daysmartsalon.com, and click on support. If you go to the website and click on support, you're going to find a wealth of articles. You're going to have the ability to chat with us. You're going to have the ability to type in questions and find answers. And also, you're going to have the ability to watch training videos. And just to double down, today is the administrative webinar. We're going to go through setting up the business. So that's going to be things like adding in services, adding in schedules, adding in employees, adding in products, and then also we're going to go through setting up payroll, running reports, and let's just jump right into it. All right, so to get started, I've logged into the software. So I've gone to daysmartsalon.com and clicked login at the top of the screen, and I'm logged in. I'm looking at my appointment book. I have some stuff already set up in here. When you're going through the setup step, you probably won't have appointments in here yet. That's totally fine. And let's start by going through the first step, which is the setup wizard. This is something that when you first log into the program, the system is going to automatically want to guide you to run through the setup wizard. I'm going to manually trigger it by going under more and going to options. But now I'm going to click over here on management, and I'm going to scroll down here and go to this last one, which is the setup wizard. Now the setup wizard is going to run you through 4 steps to help you get the program set up. And let's hit start setup to run through that together. So the first thing it wants me to do is set up the business hours, right? So let's say that we were closed on Sunday and Monday. So we'll go ahead and do that. This is going to reflect automatically on the schedule screen for the employees. It's going to know that nobody's working on that day because those days are not working days. The business is not open. I'm going to go ahead and leave these other hours on here for us, and I will hit save hours. So just adjust your weekly business hours here. And then the next screen is going to run you through wanting to import services from our pre-generated service list. So if you didn't have a list of services, rather than type them all in manually and start from scratch, you could come here and select the services that you would perform. And once you select those services that you would perform, and you could go through one by one on this list if you wanted, taking some away, whichever one you check off is the one that's going to add. And then once you've selected what you want, you just hit save services, and it's going to add those services into your program. Now I already have these services in my program, so I'm going to turn those off for the time being. But I encourage you to come to this list and select the services that you perform if you don't have an imported list of services that you want us to convert for us. You can also do this even if you do, because maybe there's some stuff that wasn't on your list that this could help with. Awesome. All right, continuing right along, I'll hit save services. I'm not going to save any services, so I'll hit yes. It's going to want to know about tax information. So this is where I would put in if there was a tax rate. We have United States tax and VAT tax. You would come down here, choose the tax name, add in a product and service tax rate. If you wanted to add another tax, right, you can have actually up to 3 different tax rates in here. And you would just give it a second name and a second rate, whatever it needed. Now I'm going to go ahead and skip this for the time being, so I'll just hit save taxes because I already got mine saved in there. And the last step is going to be wanting us to add in a user or an employee into the business. Now, you don't have to do this during the setup wizard process. Sometimes I kind of tell people that they should wait a little bit to do this until they know the system a little bit better. But if you did put in the employee's first name, last name, and then their email address, it's going to send them an email. And then once the employee gets that email, they would go in and turn on their password, set their password, and it would set them up as a full-fledged employee. While the system is waiting for them to set up their password, they would be listed in the system as pending setup. So let's go ahead and skip this for the time being. I'll hit this add employees and finish. And it says we haven't created employees. Yeah, that's fine. I'll do that later. No big deal. And let's go back into here. All right, and that really runs us through the setup wizard. Now, one of the things that the setup wizard normally does is add in a list of services into the program. So let's go ahead and click on the list of services and piggyback off of what we just did to go ahead and change and edit the services that we imported from the list. So the services imported from the list probably do not have the correct duration and price. Any service on this list, you can just click on it, open up the service details, and then start editing the service details, right? So a service that we've created, a service that we imported, a service that you created, it doesn't matter. Once it's been created, you come here, change the name, change the category or the ID. The ID is normally just an abbreviation. Give it a default duration and a default price. And then if you would like, you could do color codes. I strongly encourage the use of color codes because it just makes it that much easier to identify appointments on the appointment book. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to hit this appointment color page, and that's going to pull up the color code page, which on this appointment color code page, I could go through and adjust all the different color codes for all of the services that I wanted, right? So this is one screen where you can see all the colors side by side and make the adjustments that you need. Now, I'm actually going to jump back to the services screen, right? So I'm going to jump back to the service screen, which is where I was, and I'm going to scroll down here to the bottom because I wanted to point out this section at the bottom. This is employee exceptions. And this would be if you had an employee on staff that for whatever reason charged a different price or took a different amount of time for that same service. So let's say this person was in training, so they actually charged less and took longer, right? So I could put that in the system, and then when I book this service under John Jacobson, the system would automatically adjust the price and automatically adjust the duration to what I have set here in the exception. Now I'm going to turn that off for the time being, and I'll say off here, and I'll say yes, I want to disable the employee exceptions. All right, and then I will go ahead and hit save here to save this service and save the changes that I made. I actually didn't edit anything, so that's totally fine. Now I'm going to run you through adding in a new service. So we'll hit this little plus sign down here at the bottom of the screen. This is going to pull up the service info. I would give it a name, category, ID, duration, and price, color code if I wanted to. And once I've added that stuff in, I'm ready to go ahead and save that service into the service menu. Cool. Now I'm going to back up out of this, and we're going to go through adding in the second component into the program, which is products, right? Not everybody uses the system for products, but it will help you manage products and sell retail. So I'm going to click in here on products, and I have a list of products in here that it's going to pull up, right? So a bunch of different products in here that you can see. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually click on the product that I want to edit. And then I could edit it just like on the service menu. I could change all of these different, the make, the category, the size, retail, wholesale, all this stuff here. And then also I could go back into here. I have this little plus sign here that's going to add me in a product. So I'll hit that add product option. And then I would add in the ID, description, make, all this stuff. Now, the ID, if you have a barcode scanner, you could just scan the barcode of the product as the product ID. And then that way, when you scan that barcode in the future, the system would know, hey, this is the product that you're referring to because it's the only one that has that special ID. All right, you don't have to do that. If you add the products in, the service ID could be a number or an abbreviation, just depends on what you want. Cool. All right, so let's keep cruising down the road here. The next thing that we're going to go through is editing the schedules of the employees. So if I go here to where it says schedule, it's going to pull up the schedule screen, and you're going to notice some things. I have a custom schedule in here, but we're going to customize a little bit further. When you first get to this screen, when you first set up the program, it will have every employee working open to close. It'll just automatically list that every employee should work open to close. And then what we would do is we would click on this to go ahead and make changes. So I'm going to go ahead and click right here, and I'm going to make some changes to this schedule. So if I wanted to change this, I would just come here and change it to whatever I wanted. Let's say that the person was leaving early. And if I wanted to, I could hit schedule. That would change it for just that one day, the 24th. Or I could hit repeat. And I could say, I want to repeat this schedule out every Tuesday on a 1-week cadence until this time next year. So I just go in here, select this time next year, and then I could just go ahead and hit schedule. And it's going to automatically make that a recurring schedule for every Tuesday for the whole year. I could do Tuesday and Thursday like that. I could do Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday like that. And let's go ahead and save this. So I'll save this, and it's going to make those changes in the appointment book, right? So you'll see the changes made here, and then that's going to be recurring for the whole year. Now, let's say you went in and you did the recurring calendar or schedule for all of your employees, but then you wanted to put in like special days off, right? So variations on the typical schedule. You'd come into here, go click on this calendar function, and then navigate over to the date that you want to change the schedule for, right? So here's the schedule right here, and I'm just going to hit close, right? So that's going to mark that day as closed, and you'll see that everybody's schedule basically goes away for that day to indicate that that day is closed in the appointment book. You could navigate out here years into the future if you wanted to put in those kind of changes. And then also, let's say that, let's use this person here. Let's say that John Jacobson was going to have a vacation day, right? And then all we would have to do is just don't click repeat, and it will only schedule it for that one day. So we'll go into here, we'll say that this is a vacation day, and then we'll go ahead and hit schedule to schedule that out. Awesome. And that's really the scheduling screen in a nutshell. Let's talk about adding in employees and employee settings, right? So I kind of skipped that when we were going through the setup wizard. Let's jump back to it a little bit here. So I'm going to click on this employee icon up here at the top of the screen, and it's going to pull up my employee screen here. So I have some people that are fully set up. The people in this little coral color are going to be fully set up, and then people blue are pending setup. So that means that they haven't actually gone into their email and confirmed their password, or created their password, I should say. Now, from here, if you wanted to add an employee, you just hit this plus sign. And then that's going to pull up the add employee screen. You would start typing in the employee information, like so, right? And then you would give them a nickname if you wanted to, and then you'd have to add in their email address. And once again, what this is going to do is it's going to send this person an email and then want this person to go in and confirm their setup, their employment setup, by setting up their password. Now, the rest of the stuff you don't have to put in, but adding in their role, I think, makes a lot of sense for most businesses. Employee phone numbers, the system can send text messages to employees if you want. We're going to go through then the text setup. And then down here, this would be address information, just for record keeping. Under employment setup, if I click over here, oh, it's not going to let me because I'm adding in a fake person. Let's back up out of this just for a second, and I'll click on an existing employee to go into the employment setup screen. So here we are. Up here, you would choose whether or not this person is an administrator, whether or not they should receive those appointment notifications I was talking about, whether or not they're a booth renter. And then also down here, this is where you have some display settings. So this person is not employed at the business. You would basically deselect this box to indicate they're not working here anymore, and deselect that box to make it so they don't show up on the appointment book screen at all. All right, so I'm going to turn that back on. And then down here at the bottom, this is a pretty useful part of the program. This is where you would go in and choose what services this employee is able to perform in the system. So I can scroll down here, I can go through and choose. Now you'll notice for this employee, I only have selected barber services, which means that if I went to schedule another one of these services under this employee's name, the system would kind of yell at me. It would warn me and try to stop me from doing that. Depending on what kind of settings you have enabled, it can actually prevent it from scheduling at all and make it so that you have to choose a different person. Now, I'm going to turn this off for the time being for this employee, just so I can schedule everything under their name. And then I'm going to go ahead and click up here on Portfolio. This would be where you would have a collection of pictures that were associated with a specific employee. So if I tagged myself on a picture, it's going to show up here in my portfolio as well as on the client screen. So I had tagged myself in this picture I took of this client, and now it's showing up in my special portfolio screen, which is awesome. All right, cool. So I'm going to back out of this by hitting this little X up here in the top of the screen. And really quick before we move on to payroll, I did want to touch on, if I click on more, I can go down here into options, and there's another employee related setting I want to discuss very briefly, but it's over here under management. I click on management, and then I have the ability to come over here and go into where is it? Employee access. Here we go. And then this is where you get to control what screens and what parts of the program the different employees can get into. So if I didn't want all my employees configuring and running payroll, I'd click this to off, and I would turn it on for the people that I want it on for. So on and so forth throughout all these different screens in the program. So reports that you want to restrict, employee settings, service settings, all this stuff can be restricted so that the employees aren't venturing into parts of the program that they shouldn't be. Now I'm going to turn this off for the time being, or just save the settings with everybody having unlimited access. And let's switch gears here and talk a little bit about payroll. So if I click up here on more and I pull it down to payroll, which is this little stack of dollars here, it's going to pull up my payroll screen. I have some previous reports that I've run, right? And we're going to run a sample report here. But what I'm going to do first is I'm going to click up here. Underneath my name, there's a screen that says wages and commission. So the wages and commission screen is where I want to tell the system what everyone is supposed to get paid. I actually can't run this payroll report until I indicate a pay rate for at least one of these employees. So let's go ahead and pick on John again, and we'll go into John's profile. And in here, we have an hourly rate of pay, which would be the amount that they earn per hour if they're hourly. Down here is where you would put in service commission rate. I'm going to go ahead and select this fixed rate option. If you have the more advanced program, you'll have some more advanced payroll settings. I'll touch on these very briefly. If you click this button, it would then automatically pay either commission or hourly, whichever amount was higher. I'm going to go ahead and turn that off for the time being. And then down here, I could also turn on a sliding scale, which means that the more that this person sells, potentially, the more that they earn, right? So if they go above 500 in the pay period for services, it's going to give them 51%. And I can actually create multiple different tiers of commission that the person could fall into. Not everybody needs that, and that's why it's only available with the higher version of the program. I'm going to put on a fixed rate, and I'm going to scroll down here and talk about product commission. That's where you put in product commission. Once again, you have this sliding scale option here too. And then I'm going to scroll down to the bottom, and once I've made my changes, I'll hit save. And I will save that. Okay, and then once I've added in at least one employee's commission profile, I'm ready to go in and actually generate the payroll report. Before I do that though, I want to click on this bonus and back bar tab, and I want to explain what this is all about. So this would be if you had a particular service that had a fee that was taken off the price before the person was paid their commission. So in here we'll put a $10 fee. That would mean that if somebody got 50% commission, instead of getting $25, which is 50% of 50, they would be getting 50 minus 10, which would be 40, and they would have half of that. So they'd be getting $20. And these little question marks kind of explain what the back bar does. And the bonus amount, that's kind of the opposite. It's an icing on the cake. So they're going to get their normal commission plus $1 bonus every single time that they do this. You could do this for every single service. You could do this for no services. It just depends on what your business needs. Now I'm going to turn this off for the time being, and let's go ahead and go to the History tab and run through a payroll report. So I'm going to click down here on where it says this little plus sign to add in a new payroll report. So let's click that. Now one of the things that it does is it starts the pay cycle at the end of the previous pay cycle, that payroll report that I ran. The system wants to make sure you're not skipping days or doubling, like running the payroll report twice for the same day. So what I'm going to do is I'll just select the dates that are in here, totally fine, and then I'll hit calculate because I just want to show you what this report looks like. And okay, so it's got each of my employees, their wages, which is their hours worked times hourly rate, their commission rate, which is whatever their commission is times their products and services, and then withheld tips. So any tips that had yet to be paid to the employee would also show up on this screen. It's going to total it for you. And then over here, there's a details section where you can go in and view the details of this commission breakdown. And then actually you can go into a more detailed commission screen here that lists every single service they did, if there was a back bar charge, what commission amount they got, what the total was. It does the same thing for products. And these could be printed. These could be printed and handed to your staff if they want to see them. You could also come over here and export this information out to another file in order to manipulate it further or send it to an accountant or something like that. Cool. And really that's the payroll in a nutshell. Let's cruise right along here and move into another administrative function, which is setting up the text messaging. So when you want to set up text messaging, it is not enabled when you first get into the account. You have to turn it on. You would come in here to More, go down to Options, and under the Options screen, you're going to come over here to where it says Email and Texting. So I'm going to go to Email and Texting, click on this Reminders and Notifications, and it's going to pull up the Reminders and Notifications screen. Now, when you first get here and first set this up, it's going to look a little different. It's not going to have three options. It will just have the one that says Reminders and Notifications. And when you click on it, it's going to take you to a screen that's going to want you to record a bunch of information about your business. That's okay. That's exactly what it's supposed to do. It's going to want to know your business name, business phone number, business email, business address. And the reason is because the system adds that to some of the messages for you automatically. So once the reminders and notifications have been turned on and you walk through that screen, you have to agree to the terms at the bottom and hit OK. Then you'll come to this screen. And this is where you choose what the settings are going to be for those different reminders. So up at the top, we have a bunch of different types of notifications that you could choose from. The most common is the appointment reminder, and I have mine set up to go out one day before the person's appointment automatically as a text and an email, but you could choose whichever one you wanted here. I'll leave it on for both. And then I did go ahead and turn on the automatic confirmation, which what that does is at the end of the text message, it actually recommends that the employee, or that the client replies with the letter C, and then that is going to send automatic confirmation into the system, and it's going to confirm that appointment automatically. So once the appointment has been confirmed automatically, it will show in the appointment book with a visual representation. There'll be a little bell symbol with an exclamation point in it on the appointment book to let you know that the person is confirmed. The automatic confirmations is very, very popular. The other types of notifications you could turn on would be an appointment scheduled notification, which as soon as you save the appointment, it sends it out to them. It could also send it to the employee. So I'm not working, you make an appointment under my name, I get a message sent to me that lets me know that you did that. Also, appointment change notifications could go to the client or to the employee here. And last but not least is the appointment canceled notification. Now, what would happen if somebody were to reply to this confirmation message with something that was not the letter C? Well, what happens if you have the two-way texting enabled, which is an add-on feature? You would be able to come up here and next to your name, click on this little speech bubble, and then that is going to pull up the messaging center where anyone that has given you or sent you a custom message would actually show up here. So it would show up here. You could, in real time, go in here and start talking to them back and forth in real time, right through the program from the text number that's assigned to your business. Because when you turn on texting, you get a special number that we assign for you to your business, and that number is yours for as long as you use our software. So if people were texting that number, it would show up here, and you could go in and reply to them custom right through the two-way texting. All right, now let's go ahead and jump over to something that's very closely related to the text messaging service. It's the form integration. So the forms are actually kind of new for us. They're very popular, actually, and let me run you through what this looks like. So if I hit this little plus sign down here, I can add in a new form, and there's some pre-made forms that I could choose from. So I could choose from a COVID form, I could choose a new client form, a liability form. For our example, let's just choose a blank form, and I want to give you the full rundown of what this looks like. So I'll hit continue here. It pulls up my blank form. I would give it a name, so I'm going to call it test. And under look and feel, over here on the side, I can click on look and feel, change the color. I could also come into here and I could decide that I want to upload a logo, so here we go, I uploaded a logo. And then if I wanted to start building the form, I would then drop over these different elements to start typing in the questions that I wanted to know the answer to. A couple different ways that I could do this. So I'm going to back up out of this, and I'm actually going to pull up what's called client info and drop it over here. Okay, and I'll say fill out. Oh, gotta make that look right. The info below, right? And then when the customer gets this form sent to them, it's going to want them to fill in these details. And I'm going to take away all this stuff down here related to address and birthday and stuff, and I'll require this. Okay, so I'm well on my way to building this form. The first things it wants is the client information, and then I'm actually going to drag this paragraph element over here, drop it on the screen, and then I'm going to type in some policy statements, liability statements, things that you want people to read through, and then potentially have them sign down at the bottom. All right, so here's my signature element. I drag it over there, and then the person, please sign, that kind of thing. And then the person would sign right in here, and then you could also have them upload a file. So, a file, a picture of themselves, picture of their driver's license, or have some kind of special documentation uploaded. You could just ask for that documentation here. And the third step, once we've finished designing the form, is where we determine when the form is going to be sent out automatically to the customer, if it is at all. You don't have to have the system send out the forms automatically. If you wanted to send them out manually, of course you can. So once I've designed my form, I have all these different elements. I could do drop downs, multiple choice, I could do a scale, ask for time information or date information, but let's keep it simple. So I got my simple form here. I'll hit continue. And then this is where it wants to know what's going on with the different settings related. Should the system send this form out automatically for me, or do I want to send it out manually? If I say this form is not required, I'm going to send it out manually. If I choose any of these other options, it's going to automatically send that form out. And I could say that the form is required each time an appointment is booked. I could say a form is required the first time. I could say the form is required on a rolling 12-month period. And then you could also say, hey, you know what? It's only required for the first time that this particular service is booked. And let's say this was a tanning form. I would say it's only going to go out to people that are booking tanning for the first time, and then they would get this special tanning liability form or tanning information form, depending on what you were using this for. Awesome. So for our form, what I'm going to do is I'll turn it on as a form that's not required, and I will hit activate form. And I should have some forms in here already. If I don't, that's totally fine. We'll activate this form, and then what I'm going to do is go into the client profile. Oh, only one. I'll go into the client profile and show you where the forms would show up. So if the system was sending out forms automatically to a customer, they would show up here. I would go into the client's profile, so I go to clients and click on the client I want, and then go into forms, and then that is going to pull up the form screen. And on the form screen, any pending forms, so any forms that was sent to this client either automatically or manually, would show up here if they hadn't filled them out. If they had filled them out, they would show up here as completed forms. Now I could also hit this button that says complete now, and I could decide, hey, I want to just manually send this to the customer. So I could manually email it, I could manually text it to the customer. You could also click fill out now, and it pulls up the form on a web browser, and then you could have the customer fill it out right there on the web browser. Not as common, but I've still seen that. I would say that the most common use case is somebody shows up for their appointment, they don't have a form filled out. You would come here, click that you want to send them a text message, and tell them to fill it out on their smartphone if they had it. Awesome. Now I'm going to back up out of this. Once the forms have been completed, they'd show up here, and you could print the form or export the form out of the system into your computer. Now, there's one other thing related to forms. I wanted to come back on here. So when a form is required on an appointment, a little alert box will show up here on the screen so that you know that a form is required. Oh, well, the alert box would show if the form is required and was not filled out yet. Once the form has been filled out, the little alert box would actually go away, and you wouldn't have to deal with that anymore. Cool. So it's got a visual representation of whether or not the form has been filled out, and also you can go to the client profile screen and see it there. Cool. Now, cruising right along, the last thing that we're going to talk about in the video is reports. So let's run through reports here. There's quite a bit. We won't be able to touch on all the different reports in here, but let's touch on the most common one, which if you come in here to the report screen, it's going to be right here at the bottom. It's called the sales totals and sales tax by range of days. You can also go into sales and find it on this list here as well, right? So it's going to be right down here on this list. So I'm going to click on it. And let's go ahead and run this. So I'll run this for today, right? So this report is really cool because you can run it for any range of dates, a day, a week, a month, 5 months, whatever made sense. So I'll run it just for today. We shouldn't really have any totals in there for today, but I'll hit run report. And there we go. It's going to pull up some details here. So it's going to list all my product sales, service sales, sales tax collected, returns, everything up here is itemized. Then you can click into here and view details. And it would actually pull up a detailed breakdown of all the different services sold, information about all the services sold. And the same thing is true if you would click on any of these detailed little hyperlinks, right? So I'll click on here, go and look at the tax settings or the tax amount collected, and I can see that for every transaction. And it doesn't have any payment and change, but you could do the same thing here for payment and change, taxes. And at the very bottom, you have this employee and booth renter setting, which breaks it down by employee. All of their different totals, so you can kind of compare them to one another. Awesome. Now this report, like I said, very, very important, very, very common report for people to run. If you click here on export, it would export it out of the system, or print would print the report, obviously. So let's go ahead and back out of this. I just want to touch on some of these other reports quickly. Some of my favorites would be, there's some client reports, there's a client spending report, list a new client report, non-returning client report. So then you can find out like who it makes sense to kind of reach out to. There's a bunch of sales reports, sales by day, sales by week, sales by employee. And then there's some employee settings, hours worked, percentage booked, accounting, not many here. There's a bunch of gift card settings because if you use the integrated card processor, you can sell gift cards online. So that's become very popular. Down here, this would be online booking settings or online booking reports, excuse me. And if I click here, product reports and service reports. Awesome. So have a great day.